They called me a shadow. They called me a nobody. They thought they could break my spirit and take my inheritance without a fight. But they forgot one thing: shadows can grow, and mine is about to swallow them whole. I spent 23 years trying to be the daughter they wanted. Growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, my parents, Arthur and Diane, viewed me more as an accessory than a person. I was quiet. I was weak. My older sister, Chloe, was the star. She was the one they groomed for the family real estate empire. I was just the girl who handled the filing, the one who stayed in the background, the one they thought would never speak up. I remember the way they looked at me during dinner, like I was a mistake they hadn't quite corrected yet. "Maya, don't speak while Chloe is talking," my mother would say, her voice as cold as the ice in her glass. I took it. I took the insults, the dismissals, the way they signed over my college fund to Chloe because she needed it more for her social climbing. I worked 3 jobs. I paid my own way, and I kept my head down. The red flags started appearing when my grandfather passed away. Grandpa Silas was the only one who truly saw me. He was the founder of the company, the man who taught me that true power isn't loud. It's calculated. When he died, he left a specific clause in his will. But my parents, they didn't want me to see it. They told me he left me nothing but a few old books. I saw the way they whispered in the study, the way Chloe smirked at me when I walked by. They thought I was too fragile, too emotional to handle the business. I started noticing the discrepancies in the company ledgers I was filing. Thousands of dollars, moving into consulting fees that didn't exist. My parents were bleeding the company dry to fund Chloe's lavish lifestyle, and they were planning to pin the bankruptcy on me. They had set up a paper trail, making it look like I, the quiet assistant, had been skimming from the top. They were going to throw me to the wolves to save their precious golden child. I sat at my desk, my hands shaking, but for the first time in my life, it wasn't from fear. It was from the realization that the people who were supposed to love me were my greatest enemies. The day it happened was my 25th birthday. There was no cake, no card. Instead, there was a legal envelope on my desk. My father walked in, his face a mask of fake disappointment. "Maya, we found the missing funds," he said, his voice echoing in the silent office. "We have to report this. We've decided, for the sake of the family, you need to leave. Quietly. If you sign this confession, we won't call the police." I looked at him, and I felt my world shatter. I thought, maybe there was a spark of love left. I thought, the man who held me as a baby couldn't be this cruel. But as Chloe walked in, wearing a designer dress bought with stolen money, and laughed, I knew. "Don't cry, Maya," she sneered. "You were always the weak link. You're just doing us one last favor." I left that office with nothing but my bag and the books Grandpa Silas had left me. I sat in my tiny, cold apartment, and I broke. I cried until my throat was raw, until my eyes were swollen shut. I felt erased. They had taken my name, my future, and my family. They thought I would just disappear. But that night, I opened the books. Inside the cover of an old leather-bound journal was a hidden compartment, a flash drive, and a handwritten note from Grandpa. "Maya, they think you are quiet because you are weak. I know you are quiet because you are watching. If they ever try to dim your light, use this. The real ledger is here." I plugged the drive into my laptop, and the truth flooded the screen. Not only had my parents been stealing, they had been committing massive tax fraud for a decade. And the biggest twist? Grandpa Silas hadn't left the company to all of us. He had left the controlling interest to me. The documents my parents showed me were forgeries. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had committed a federal crime to keep me from my inheritance. My heart pounded, a slow, steady rhythm. The weak girl was gone. I spent 3 months in the shadows. I didn't call. I didn't text. I let them think I was gone. While they planned a massive gala to celebrate Chloe's appointment as CEO, I was working with the best forensic accountants and federal investigators money could buy. I didn't want a small victory. I wanted total destruction. The night of the gala, I arrived. I didn't wear a shadow. I wore a dress of deep, blood-red silk. I walked into that ballroom, and the music died. My mother dropped her glass, the shards spraying across the marble floor. My father moved toward me, his face turning a sickly shade of white. Maya? What are you doing here? You're trespassing, he hissed. No, father, I said, my voice calm, soft, cinematic. I'm checking on my investment. The federal agents entered through the side doors. I watched as the weak girl handed over the flash drive to the lead investigator. Check the offshore accounts listed under Chloe's trust, I said, never breaking eye contact with my sister. Chloe started screaming, a high, ugly sound. My mother collapsed into a chair, and my father, he just looked at me with a hollow, empty stare. The headlines the next morning were beautiful. Real estate icons arrested for decade-long fraud. Because I was the majority shareholder. I took control of everything. I evicted my parents from the family estate, the same estate they tried to steal from me. I sold their cars, their jewelry, and liquidated Chloe's trust to pay back the employees they had cheated. I moved into Grandpa Silas's old office. I sat in his chair, looking out over the city. My phone rang. It was my mother, calling from a burner phone. She was crying, begging for a place to stay. Maya, please, we're your family. I paused, letting the silence stretch, feeling the weight of the justice I had finally earned. You told me. I was the weak link, I whispered into the phone. And you were right. I was weak because I loved you. But now, I'm just the owner. I hung up. The room was quiet. I wasn't a shadow anymore. I was the sun, and I was just getting started. If you think being quiet means being weak, think again. Subscribe if you believe that the best revenge is living well and taking back what's yours. Comment revenge if you've ever been underestimated.